What is good, my people? We are live back again with another live show on the forecast. I'm not gonna be on here too long tonight. I know it's already late over here where I'm at. So if y'all want to call in, I don't really have anything in particular that's a topic tonight. So y'all can call in and talk about whatever you want to talk about. The number is 804-601-4015. I just wanted to come on here and talk to y'all before I get started on the next video. So, make sure y'all subscribe to the backup channel. The Forecast Radio 24 is in the descriptions. I can't post those videos on here, so when they go up, they're gonna be on there. But I'll give y'all a heads up and a warning and all of that. So, you know, but if y'all got anything to say or whatever, y'all can call in 804-601-4015. And yeah, I'm not sure if y'all was keeping up with the whole Kwame Brown story, all of that was going on with him. And this brings up the age old topic and the target of America, their whole goal, and that is to demasculize, to feminize black men, and to masculize black women, right? And you'll see this throughout history, the same pattern. Anytime a black man, especially a black man, is willing to stand up and speak on his own, then you're going to have every kind of way to smear his name and to damage his reputation, right? Because propaganda is everything. If you can control what everybody sees, what everybody hears, the thing that people know, then you can control their minds and you can stay in the position that you're in. And again, this is a classic tactic of a psychopath. This is what psychopaths do, right? They convince everybody else that this person a problem when clear that they are literally the target. They are going around damaging and trying to control everybody, but they have to make everybody else look like they need their help. But see, when a black man gets fed up and stops taking any damage, they have to do anything possible that they can do to control him. That's why every time you see a black leader, you're going to see something to damage his name. They throw Martin Luther King in your face all day, but they have books just studying him, doing things to ruin him, right? Because as soon as he started talking about getting that money, then everything started changing. And every time a black man speaks up and starts to not conform to European standards, or even just defends himself, they're going to find a way to make him target number one. Because that's how it goes. That's a part of the propaganda. They have to make you look like the scary, big, bad black man. Right? It's like when they came over here killing people, raiding and taking the land, right? When the native people had a victory, right? They may have killed 4 Europeans, right? The papers will read, oh, there was a tragedy, there was a massacre, there was this and that. But they would go in there and tear apart civilizations, nations, tribes, whatever, right? And they would say this was a great victory because the very thing they understand, when you stop having that spirit of fear, right, where you have that energy where you cannot be controlled, then you become a problem to them. And it's not necessarily about what you say, how you say it. They don't care about any of that. What they care about is when people are listening to what you say. Because the black leaders from the past, right? As soon as people start listening to them, start gathering, they were starting to organize people. That's when they came out and smear their name in every single way possible. But the only thing about it is that won't really work unless you are apologetic about it, unless you don't know your own history, unless you don't know yourself, unless you don't know your own worth, unless you don't know that you are entitled to defend yourself and to have self-love like everybody else is. See, what they have to do is control what you hear, what you see, so that way when this person does speak out, now they can bring out this so-called dirt on this person. But that masculine energy has always been the very first thing that they have had to destroy, because that is revolutionary, right? That is not allowing yourself to be harmed. That is not letting somebody punch you in the face without punching them back. And when you are able to be within your own energy and not feel ashamed about it and are able to control it, then you could have people following you. And if you get a certain number of people following you, this is going to be trouble. Now, we know they've always kept certain people in certain positions who may have felt like, well, I can get ahead, right, by doing the bidding of my enemy, but I may not be harmed, right? But you really thinking in the short term. Because, when, and goes back to the plantations, I always talk about the history and all of that stuff too. It goes right back to the plantation when Gabriel Prosper, he was in Richmond, Virginia, right? He was able to get hundreds of people on code and ready to go, right? But the night they were supposed to attack them, it started raining crazy heavy, and and not to make fun of the ancestors and nothing, but I can see it now, right? All of those people was probably like, "Oh Lord, this is time from the heavens, right? We gonna get in trouble. We's gonna get caught." But some of them knew that you know death is better than being in bondage. But that's the thing. They got another black person to go to their quote unquote master, and he told them about everything. And in return, he got quote unquote freedom. And he thought he was gonna get money, but they stiffed him with that. So he felt like, I did what I had to do to get freedom. See, but the thing is, what you did has no protection for your children, for yourself even. Because even though you was free, right, you were living in a country where they had the fugitive slave law, where free black people was getting kidnapped all the time. Now you didn't stop the whole revolution because you are focusing on yourself. But the greatest way to keep your position is by divide and conquer. And that's a tactic that is as old as war itself. And it's easier to use somebody who looks like you to push your talking points. And so when this brother Kwame Brown starts speaking up for himself, now all of a sudden it turns into the big bad violent black man. Right? He never said anything about violence. In fact, he said, I'm not going to fight anybody. But he doesn't have that back down energy. So they have to throw dirt on his name. But I'll tell you right now, anybody who is still pushing the Democratic Party or any kind of party onto you, you have to look at them suspect. Because at this point, it doesn't take a prophet to know what Joe Biden was going to do. Right? In fact, he said, I'm not going to do anything. But we sit here and buy the hype of we got to get rid of Donald Trump, the lesser of two evils. When there's no such thing as the lesser of two evils, number one. And number two, they're both the same evil. Right? It's not like they're two different things. That whole Democrat Republican stuff, that's their issues. But see, you can only get a certain platform by having certain talking points. Now, what the internet did is it changed the playing field, it leveled the playing field somewhat. But even then, we're still on platforms that is going to stifle certain speech with their quote unquote shadow bans. And even still, it's no telling how many people actually listen because they mess with the subscriber count, they mess with the view count. They try to ban your channel all to discourage you. But the one thing that they won't do is actually challenge the points that you say. And that's done for a specific reason because they can't challenge the point that you say. So what do? They gaslight you. They try to smear you. They try to make it seem like you are the problem. But we can do a body count. And then they go straight to the angry black man, the angry black woman, that whole stereotype. Well, you know what? Anybody who is in oppression, anybody under somebody else's system should be angry. It's okay to be angry. You use that anger to your advantage, right? Use it constructively to create what you're supposed to create for yourself and for your children. Now, see, every single, especially black man that has stood up and was not afraid of the consequences, they have done everything in their power to discredit them. Even people like Martin Luther King, who they preach about right now. What's going on, Miss Cloud Chasing? Right. If you're oppressed, you should be angry. Right. And there's nothing wrong with that. Don't let anybody tell you that having a human emotion is wrong because this is coming from somebody who probably doesn't have human emotions, who doesn't have empathy, is a psychopath. But every single black man or woman or whoever that stands up and did what they're supposed to do, they find a way to target them and to make them seem like they are the crazy one. When all they're doing is responding to the situation that they're in. But one way you can tell that somebody is full of it is when the shoe is on the other foot, they can magically understand right from wrong. They can see how justice should be dealt out. Right? That's how you know somebody is just lying to you. But that also shows somebody with a lack of empathy. So when people start calling them out, they're got to use every single tool that they can to make that especially black man to bow down. Right? Back in the 1800s, David Walker made this appeal to the black population around the world, the same appeal that we make today. Right? If you read it right now, it'd be the same thing that we all know we should be doing right now. But his family and friends told him, well, you better stop talking like that. You better go disappear. And, the next year he just ended up dead. And they tried to say it was natural causes at the age of 30. And that's that fear they try to instill into you when you have the courage to speak up. And y'all could call in, by the way. It's 804 601 4015. I'm not gonna be on here too long, I guess, but right, they definitely have to discredit the person. They have to make up all kind of accusations, but they have no problem sweeping the accusations of anybody else under the rug. Now, see, when you're dead and you're gone, right? They can value your opinion, right? They pardon people like Jack Johnson in 2017, right? But they prosecute the modern day version of that. And you can go back, like the NBA player, the brother from the Bulls, when he went to the White House and spoke against it, he was he was out of the NBA the next year. But the people who don't speak out, who won't say what they have to say, they get rewarded, right? LeBron James has enough money for a lifetime, right? And I'm nobody's pocket watching him. But when he spoke about the death of a little black girl in his community, right? And as a man, you should be able to speak about anything that you feel is wrong and not back down from your words. And when he spoke about that, they made him apologize for that because that masculinity has to be checked, right? Because that masculinity means that you're getting close to the point where you're not going to take this anymore. And the irony is they can be quick to blackball somebody in an area where if we was to actually stop trying to fit into a European society and we did it on our own, we would thrive more than they do. Like, how do you blackball a black man from the NBA, right? When you can make the whole NBA yourself, why are you scared to lose that position? But that's what centuries of trying to effeminize a black man does. That was the whole purpose of the whole buck breaking thing, right? To take the biggest man who may spark some kind of revolution and make an example out of him in front of everybody. And this is a culture that has not changed in hundreds of years, and we still expect it to change, or something is going to be different. And we never even put two and two together that the same people who are saying this about black men are caping for white men who have committed crimes against humanity. Right? You can't talk about Joe Biden after the fact if you came at any black man. Like when Ice Cube talked about him, they called him a sellout. But now people are saying, questioning what Joe Biden is saying. It didn't take a prophet to know that. Because psychopaths aren't that creative. They do the same thing over and over and over. It's just they have to keep you ignorant to it so that it can still work. They have to keep you in confusion about it. And you notice when people like Khalid Muhammad would speak, they would compare him to David Duke. Or if a black man says anything, they compare him to, some white psychopath. Right? And that shows you the mindset that they have. If you talk about teaching your history to kids or whatever, they think is a bad thing and they classify Marxists. Or if they hear what I'm saying, they'll be like, oh, it sounds like something Hitler would say. Don't compare me to no European. Right? Those people are straight psychopaths. You're naming other Europeans and trying to compare that to the situation that you're in. But see, if another group were to speak up for themselves, then nobody sees that as wrong. And you got to ask yourself why, right? White supremacy is defined by black inferiority. You are the target. Something happens to an Asian person, they speak up and they take action. Something happens to a white person, they speak up and they take action. Something happens to a black person, and we got to apologize for speaking up about it. We got to say, not all cops is bad. We got to say, oh, there may be some good white folk. When all of that is irrelevant, the only relevant thing is self autonomy. But as long as they got you dependent on them, you can't speak up or say nothing for yourself. That's why you get situations where you got people like Nick Cannon who did nothing but spoke about history, and he has to go on an apology tour. Because if a black man or a black woman stands up for his or herself, they can't have that. And it has to be punished. And that's why they use certain black people. They'll use the words of a Candace Owens or something like that. Somebody who is willing to sell their selves for a paycheck. But what those people in those positions don't understand is a psychopath only sees everything as a tool. Right? If they don't have no empathy about sitting on somebody's neck, about shooting a little kid, about anything that they have done, if they don't have empathy about that, they see you as nothing but a slave to do their work. What makes you think that you're any different if you agree with them? They see you as nothing but a tool. And when that tool is not working right, or they have no more use for that tool, they discard it. They discredit it. They take whatever it is away from you. And that's the whole point of keeping you without nothing, without anything, keeping you in a state of mindset of poverty. Because, they always got to, and this is a part of that whole toxic masculinity thing. You put people in terrible conditions, and when they respond to those conditions, you label them as a terrorist, as a problem. Because a black man in a position who knows who he is a threat to America, is a terrorist to them. And anybody with any kind of threat, like how can somebody who have a history discredit anybody who speaks against them? And that's why they make sure that anybody who does stand up for themselves, not just they try to kill them, they try to erase them from history as if they never existed. You see what they say about people like Huey Newton, or like what happened with the MOVE organization. Now the police went in there bothering them, trying to kick them out of their home, right? All because they were standing up for black people. They were trying to speak about or they said poor people mostly, but they were speaking about black people. But they wasn't going along with the program. And when the police came shooting at them and they defended themselves, now they put it on TV and everywhere that they were cop killers. When really the killers were the cops. Now they are telling you and putting all this propaganda out on these black women and children. And the very people putting the propaganda out dropped a bomb on a neighborhood in one of his own neighborhoods. Right? The second time America has bombed its own citizens. And both times it has been you. And after they dropped bombs in Philadelphia, they let it burn. They killed men, women, and children. And then after that, they kept the bones of the children in a museum. Right? And these are the people you're going to believe the propaganda about the people they're locking up. But they're pushing that toxic masculinity BS, right? To keep that warrior class down, to make sure that warrior class doesn't rise up. They're locking most of that warrior class up, mostly for nonviolent drug offenses. We're not even going to talk about who the biggest drug dealers are. But see, they got to push that toxic masculinity so that, you know, as a little black boy, you see that and you rebel against who you are. You think that it's something wrong with who you are, trying to adapt into a psychopathic society that has been created. Because how can somebody who kills everybody who's already there, right? How can they build something and then not have that same mindset? But You see that just like the first time America bombed its own citizens, we're in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Rose and Black Wall Street. They went with the lie that this brother touched a white girl in the elevator. Now later she came out and admitted she lied and all of that, just like most of the stories. Those white girls came out and admitted they lied, but they knew they were lying. But it's a reason why they were running stories about this big bad black man. See, like going back even to the 1800s, and most of these poor white people, right? They would come, these white immigrants like the Irish and all of that, the Italians, they would come over here and they would have to compete for jobs with black people. And most times they were slaves back then. So they couldn't get no jobs. Now they blame their problems on black people instead of the people instituting slavery. So in their newspapers, they would constantly run stories about how black men are raping white women. Black men are stealing this, are stealing that. Now, see, again, when you are dealing with a psychopath, most times what do you try to do, right? You walk on eggshells not to offend them, not to do anything, but still, nothing you do is good enough, right? You still always violate, no matter what you do. You can't walk on enough eggshells. And they're running these stories all the time how the black man is a thief, the black man is a murderer, the black man is on drugs. And these poor white people would hear these stories, and then a white girl would lie about what happened. Right? They lied about a little girl lied that a black man raped her. Right? That's what happened with these riot in Ohio in like 1800, 1820 something. They use this excuse of the big bad black man to attack a whole community of black men, women, and children. And that's the whole MO to keep you in your place from fighting. Now, I mean, I don't know if y'all heard there's gonna be a new Cinderella or whatever, and it's not even hate about it, but the I think it's Cinderella. The fairy godmother is supposed to be a black man. Right now, it could be a black woman, but they made it a gay black man. Right? They can push this whole gay black agenda, right? And even separate that and say the black gay people are like, my gayness is first, my sexuality comes first, and they try to equate the gay struggle with the black struggle. But there is no question that in America and globally, there has been an objective to make black men more feminine, more women like, to take away that warrior spirit. And either way, you're going to be on a low vibration if you're not fighting for what you're supposed to be fighting for. But, the black men in history, and they'll show you on TV, like, Dave Chappelle said, they have to have black men in a certain role. They have to have black men wearing a dress because the signs of a strong black man may get passed down to a little boy who is not willing to take any more BS from a corrupt society, right? But if all he see is a feminized black man, right, and naturally that'll cause disharmony within black women, right? Naturally, because men have a certain masculine energy, women have a certain feminine energy. So you are inherently creating more problems. And then all the stuff that they put in your food to intentionally keep you in this position. But you gotta start asking yourself, and we gotta start asking ourselves, why are they doing so much? Why are they doing all of this? If you are such worthless thugs and criminals and you're so toxic, why are they doing all of this to keep you in your position? Why are they doing all of this? Why are the people who had you in their homes, right, taking care of them, right, feeding their children, taking care of their children, doing everything for them? If you were so violent and so savage, why would they be doing this? It's because they understand the power that you have. And when you start coming as a black man, when we start coming into our masculinity, black women start coming into their femininity, and we decide in our mind that enough is enough. There is nothing they can do that can stop us. There isn't enough bullets. There aren't enough tanks. There aren't enough anything in the world they can do to stop us. You got to understand, right? They have to keep that critical race theory out of their schools, because if we start learning how the black people fought back and won so many times, we're going to start getting crazy ideas about fighting back and how to win. But like, I'm not going to be on here too much longer. If anybody that's listening want to call in, y'all can call in. It's 804-601-4015. But they understand when that masculine energy has had enough, there aren't enough, they don't have enough weapons in the world to be able to stop us. That's why no matter what they have had, they have always had to use lies and deception. When France was attacking Haiti, they had the supposed strongest army in the world at the time. And Napoleon was supposed to be their best general. And he was getting crushed, even though they heavily outnumbered them. But he had to bring Dessalines over. Well, he had to bring not Dessalines, but he had to bring him over, and they gave him French citizenship and all of this, but they were lying to destroy his movement. Because anytime that black men rise up and black men are in their masculinity, naturally black women are going to rise up and be in their femininity, and we'll be able to start putting aside our tribal differences like we have been doing for the majority of our history. We are going to take somebody harming our children, our kids, our elderly, our brothers, our sisters. We're going to start issuing consequences, and that they cannot have. Because when we start getting the courage, the mindset to start cycling our dollars in our own communities, and we realize we don't need them for anything, it's going to really expose how much they really need you. Even though you were so crazy, even though you're so psychotic, even though you're so violent. Because you know, a black man saying, no, I'm not going to be abused, that's considered violent to them. You're challenging my control at this point. You're a threat. You're dangerous. Don't you know you got to stay in your place? And they will use anything that they got to use to keep you in that place. But that's why we got to start getting out of the mindset of they'll let us do this, they'll let us do that. Because guess what? Them quote unquote letting has nothing to do with you not spending your money with places that, first of all, that don't even want you to be in there. Right? It ain't even got to just start with only going to black owned businesses. How about you just stop going to businesses that don't even want to serve you in the first place? Right? The thing to do would be to start building your own instead of fighting to be a part of something that hates you. But when we start learning to be proud of our masculine energy, black women to be proud of their feminine energy, they're going to know they can't just come into our neighborhoods and harm our children. They're going to know I can just get on the radio like they do and call 5, 6 armed black people to show up. And they're not apologizing about it either. Because we're the only ones that got to apologize about who we are. We got to apologize about not wanting our children to be shot by the police. We got to get rid of that weak, docile mindset. We got to get out of that slave mentality. What's going on, black man? Because as long as they can keep us in a position where we're apologizing about who we are and wanting justice, they know they ain't got to do too much. But believe me, they're going to do everything. You know, the FBI was created to stop you. Every girl, mostly every government program like that was created to stop you. Right? J. Edgar Hoover made his claim to fame off of stopping Marcus Garvey. And they're going to tell you about who Marcus Garvey is. And then he got inducted into the Psychopathic Hall of Fame by trying to stop people like Martin Luther King and the quote unquote Black Power movement. And it's really people asking not to be shot, not to be killed, to be treated like humans. But you know what? It takes a savage to call a person like that a savage. It takes a savage to go over there and say these people aren't human, so I can just kill them all. But really, these people won't even kill their own dogs, but they will do it to you. They'll torture you. And these are the people that's calling you a savage. See, Ida B. Wells exposed them in the 1800s. She said my friend ain't had nothing to do with no white girl. They just burnt the town because they was jealous about the money black people was making. Because the black people realized, the land we on, that's all the natural resources here. And if we put our money in our own communities, we can build our own stuff and do whatever we want to do. She realized when black people start having that economic power, that's when they start getting more and more violent. That's when that toxic energy start coming out, the real psychopath energy coming out. They ain't give a damn about a white woman. It was all about you having economic abilities of your own, not being reliant on them, having a sense of self-autonomy. And when she exposed them for that, they tried to burned down her printing press, her house, her offices. They told her if she ever came back, they would kill her. And these are the same people telling you that you toxic for speaking up. Now, like the brother Kwame Brown said, they use him as the face of, just to make fun of him, right? They aren't going to do that to their own. And they also aren't going to hire somebody who would do that to their own. They will only hire people who would push their talking points. But you got to think about it. It makes sense. Right? You can't be mad at them for trying to maintain their system. You just have to work harder to establish yours. Because if I create my own, I'm not going to put somebody on to push the destruction of it. If I want to be in control of everybody else, I'm not going to put somebody on to talk about the opposite. That's why they're going to keep certain people in certain positions, the people that they can get to give up their beliefs for their money. But again, it's all elementary. You destroy black masculinity, you destroy black femininity, you destroy the black family. You can be able to control people's minds. You can say whatever you want, and if a black person speaks out, they can. Well, take this phone call. From. Hello.
What's going on, Forecast?
What's going on, brother Bakari? What's going on, my brother?
Everything, brother. How about you?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good.
That's good. I'm listening to your show, and I heard you talking about us shopping elsewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just shopping with people that don't want you there.
Right.
And you said it don't have to just be black owned. Shit. Don't nobody want us there. People take your money and disrespect you. But I think one of our problems is, right, we searching for white validation in everything that we do. Everything we do, we're looking for this system in this country and everything to be okay with it, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
We've been beat down so bad in this country, mentally, physically, emotionally. We think the only thing that we can do is try to fit in, try to do what we think they will be okay with, without us understanding that they are not okay with anything that we do. It's not what we do, it's us that they're not okay with. So I just ask for, stop seeking validation and be happy and strong. Like you said, they don't want no real strong black man, so they don't want to teach that. We have to be happy and we have to be strong in who we are and what we stand for, instead of constantly searching for other people's validation. We have to mind our own business, right? So things that don't pertain to us, we shouldn't get involved in that. We have to stay focused on Black people. We're too far behind to always say we're going to reach out a hand to other people and we're going to be friends with other people. And for me, right, so they're all the same to me. All of them, from the Arabs who taught the white Europeans who control shit now, the Arabs taught them how to do this because the Arabs did it first. So they're all in the same boat. And we shouldn't let none of them off the hook. And I think we should say we're going to support Black and buy Black first and foremost before we go anywhere else. You know, not just, don't just spend Black. You know, they don't want you. They don't want us if you're not Black. That's just my take on it. That's the only way we'll ever build our community. If we just go ahead and say, man, we need a cultural reform. In order to, we need to reform our culture. If that makes sense to you. Yeah. I was just calling in, telling you this show.
Yeah, let me ask you this, because I seen you did a video on the brother Kwame Brown. I was kind of talking about that a little bit, but you know, you got an opinion on that?
Well, with Kwame Brown, yeah, I did a show about it, but my show was not about what he's saying. I agree with Kwame. They have dogged Kwame for 20 years, right? I agree with Kwame when Kwame said how those people on TV only talk about Black men. So basically, my show was when I stand with Kwame Brown. My show was about calling out white basketball players who was drafted in the top 5 because if you know sports, there's really not a huge difference. There's not supposed to be a big difference between players from 1 through 10, right? There's not supposed to be a great difference. But I noticed the only people they ever called bust are Black people. I've been noticing that for years now. Kwame said it, and I'm glad other people caught and heard it. So my show was about Adam Morrison, who was the 3rd overall pick, who was an absolute bust. Darko Milicic, who was drafted in the draft he was taker number 2. He was drafted over Carmelo Anthony, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade, who was an absolute bust. And Cody Zeller, who played with the Hornets now, who was the 4th pick overall, who was an absolute bust. And they never say anything about them. I'm doing another show tomorrow. I stand with Kwame Brown Part 2. And I'm going to do one every time I find him. I'm going to try to do a couple of weeks. And I'm going to talk about what Kwame Brown is talking about. Not just how they treated him, but how they can get on there and talk negative about Black players, Black men all the time, and they have Black people do it, and they never do anything negative about white people. So I'm going to do Danny Ferry, who was an absolute bust. Ricky Rubio, who was an absolute bust. I got Sean Bradley, Jimmy Fredette. I'm going to do 3 tomorrow. I go to Christian Laettner, who was a bust. I'm going to...
Oh, that white boy, Grayson Allen.
A bust. Bobby Hurley, who was drafted number 7. Not only was he a bust, he was a drunk. That's how his career ended. He had a car wreck. Ended his career. He was drunk driving. He was a drunk. But they don't talk about them the way they talk about the Black players. And that's what, when I say I stand with Kwame Brown, I do stand with him defending himself. But I want to touch on some of the players' names that people don't know.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, if y'all want to subscribe to Brother Bakari channel, y'all can do that, definitely.
So yes, I will have another one coming tomorrow.
All right, for sure, my brother.
All right, my man. One love.
All right, take it easy, bro. And yeah, he's definitely right. And yeah, Keith Van Horn, yeah. And it's not just with the NBA either, right? Because I know we are over this NFL strike that we was on. You know what I'm saying? We, forgave them for that. The most forgiving people. No justice, no peace, but the most peaceful with the least amount of justice. But anyway, it's not just the NBA; it's the NFL too, right? You see how they treat black quarterbacks. You see how they do the black quarterbacks. But then you have people like Tom Brady. They're not going to talk about toxic masculinity when he starts complaining and crying, right? They're not going to talk about it. Then it's just passion. But you see a black quarterback do that, then he has anger issues. He has this, he has that. The way they talk about black quarterbacks coming out, right? You can look at the whole Tim Tebow situation, right? People are starting. Des Bryant, who spoke up for them, is angry about the Tim Tebow situation and is now talking about race. But now, after he got out of the position that he was in. But this is the point of black masculinity that we also, at some point, have to be accountable for that. Because if you're going to wait until the fact that you are in a position where you can't speak on it, or you don't have anything to lose, and then you speak on it, how masculine can you really be? How much respect can you really get? So you have people like Muhammad Ali. He didn't care. He really risked it all and spoke the truth about his situation. And I can't compare Kaepernick to Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali was a true hero, and he stood up for what he was supposed to stood up for. He was willing to give everything up for that. Right? That was black masculinity. He told them how he felt to their face with no problem. But they criminalized him. They demonized him. They took his title away. They put him in jail. They did everything they could do to discredit him. But then when when he died, they prop him up like some kind of hero. But if you don't have the courage to step up and speak out in the times where you are afraid that it'll affect your paycheck or whatever, right? You got to question how far your masculinity goes, because self-respect, your boundaries, self-autonomy, right? And that's not all things that make you a man or whatever, because a grown woman has those things too, right? That's why we got to look at the people who were put in those positions, because you look at a lot of these anchors, and there are people that we constantly complain about, right? Like I forgot big dude name that always criticize people. You got Stephen A. Smith, all of these people you constantly complain about, Jamel Hill. They have to speak that way about certain groups of people. But you notice when they try to open their mouth about other groups of people, they have to come back and apologize. But a part of owning who you are is standing on the words. And don't say nothing if you don't mean it, but stand on it. And the NFL, as soon as that brother Deshaun Watson decided to speak out and talk out about his situation, how he was did dirty, they immediately threw his name under the bus. Now they had all of this information ready to go as soon as he spoke out. That means they swept it under the rug until then. So how much do you think they're doing it because they're doing the right thing? They can't have you speaking out. But see, their own people like Tom Brady, they'll never talk about those kind of people that way. Right? He can throw a whole hissy fit on the sidelines and he's just passionate. But Cam Newton getting hit extra late after the play, right there, throwing him down on his head, helmet to helmet contact. They never call any kind of penalties. But you breathe on Tom Brady too hard, they're going to call that penalty. But that whole thing goes back to all of that propaganda, how black men are this, black men are so dangerous, right? Do you know why they handcuff, still to this day, they handcuff a black man after they shoot him 10 times? Because they used to have propaganda that the drug addict black man, a bullet can't hurt him. Right? Like we were some zombies or something. And, if any of y'all want to call in, I'm going to probably wrap it up in a few more minutes. The number is 804-601-4015. Definitely appreciate my brother Bakari for coming on. But see, they can't have you knowing that you are the lifeline. You are the truth. When you speak out, things move. They react. They have to respond to you. It's time to stop responding and to start, well, it's time to start reacting and to start responding. Because they have nothing that they can hold over your head. But this is where we have to start being accountable for ourselves. Right? Start having enough self-love for ourselves to not give up our beliefs, our principles. Let somebody violate our boundaries to give us pieces of paper with people on them that would have hung us. Because that's not a masculine thing to do. And not to say that that's a feminine thing, that is a sellout thing to do. Because a man will stand on his own principles and sacrifice whatever they got to sacrifice for that. And they don't have to hurt other people to do it. Now, the thing is, you will always be a target because a psychopath feel like you gaining a little bit of power is taking power away from them. Right? They don't have the mindset to understand having self-autonomy over yourself doesn't mean controlling other people, because that's how they see it. They can only be in control if they control everything around them. That comes from a situation of lack. You got to understand, before they came to the position they are in today, they were coming out of the dark ages. They're coming out of a place of lack, coming out of a place of individualism. And they put that into us. Now you fight your own brother over a block, and it's not like that no more. It's not like it's the 80s right now. But we fight each other still, even though it's moved to the internet. We fight each other over a block that the police pull up and clear everybody off that block. But as a man, you can't let another man come in your home and violate your family without consequences. And you can't let anybody make you back down from your words and your beliefs. And never let anybody make you talk bad about yourself. Because you got to realize we are in a system where we are seen as one big Negro. And when you got one Negro on TV talking about another, they feel justified in what they're saying. Of course, they're going to use their tools. They're going to use every single thing in their arsenal because they know that this is war. And when you create that environment of poverty and you come over and offer somebody a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? They're going to be looking at you and grateful and do whatever they got to do for that sandwich. But standing on your principles is being willing to sacrifice whatever you got to sacrifice to maintain your principles, to maintain your self autonomy, to not put yourself, your family, your children in danger. Now we are in the situation that we are in. You can't go back in time. You can't reverse it. But what we can do right now is decide that we have had enough. We are not going to continue to put up with this. You can decide that right now, and by tomorrow, things will change. But we can't keep pushing European propaganda, seeing life through Europeans, thinking that your brother, your sister is the enemy. Because when you're saying that about your brother, about your sister, you're saying that about yourself. And I know we like to think, no, I'm different, I'm this, I'm that. But we are up against a system who doesn't see that. They didn't say, oh, well, this person is good. I'm not going to kidnap you and make you a slave. This person is nice and sweet. I'm not going to kidnap you. No, they said, take all the niggas they can get. And it's important not to be ashamed of your masculinity. And, people be like, oh, how do you have, oh, it takes courage to say, it doesn't. Because I'm more afraid not to do something than to actually do something, because I know this same thing is going to keep happening. Right? I know I don't have kids right now, but I know if I did, then they would be born into the same system. My worst fears have already come true. What more can they do? What are they going to do? Take you from your country, take your language away, put you in terrible poverty situations, kill you at will, make laws against you, right? Discriminate against you. What are they going to do to you? We cannot keep operating in a state of fear. Like their people who they put on mountains said, liberty or death. I'm not telling you nothing George Washington didn't tell America. They put his face on a mountain. So what's wrong with you saying that about yourself, about your family? About saying, I'm not going to let you come in my house and violate my child, and there's not going to be a consequence? In every aspect of society, we can build and do what we need to do in your home, right? And this is why it's important, right? And I know some people is like, love is love, but we got to go extra out the way to be in families with our own people, because we are in a situation unlike anybody else in history. We have to build strong communities. We have to go out of the way to rebuild communications with each other to solve our issues. And once we get out of the situation, we definitely have a lot of issues we're going to have to deal with. Right? White supremacy showed us a lot of issues in our community. But we got to put our tribal differences to get in a position to where we can have self-autonomy, where we can control our own communities. And stop being shocked that other communities do for themselves. We are the only ones programmed to think that we are selfish for doing for ourselves. It's not selfish. It's called being a human. But we have so much love and empathy and everything for everybody else that we think is all right. But it cannot be love if you don't love yourself. You got to be coming from a different place. And you got to ask yourself, what place is that? If you feel like you can go out and say, we want DACA pass, but think that it's wrong to ask for something for yourself. If you go out and caping for stop Asian hate, but scared to say stop black hate, that can't be love, because if you don't love yourself, how can you love somebody else? So you got to ask yourself, where is that coming from? But it's coming from that propaganda that has been instilled in us, that black men are violent, savage thugs, especially a big black man. But I've never seen them institute a system of chattel slavery. Comes from that propaganda that black women are this and that. Meanwhile, they had to get black women to raise their children. And RIP to Paul Mooney. Paul Mooney said, if slavery was reinstated tomorrow, they'd be on the front porch welcoming black people home. But you start talking, I'm a black man, all that black man stuff is going to stop. They're going to be on there talking about, you're talking about violence. Meanwhile, they're dropping bombs on you. Remember, the army, military, every time a black man stood up for himself and his community, they literally sent bombs on you. They sent U.S. Army to stop you. They created federal programs to stop you. They said the biggest threat to America is the rise of the Black Messiah. But what they don't realize is they could never stop the Black Messiah, because it's not a person, it's an energy. The Black Messiah is Black unity, and they can never stop it at the end of the day. So be proud of yourself. Be proud of who you are. Teach your sons, be proud of who they are. Teach your daughters to be proud of who they are. Make sure that black dog tests don't affect another generation for us. Be sure that our children don't see other black men as a thug and a savage and a problem. Because, yeah, we need guns in our community to protect ourselves. But why are we needing guns in our community to protect ourselves from each other? Like, black man, why are you robbing another black man who is just as poor as you, when the person who is exploiting both of you and locking both of you up is getting away with it? But, man, we got to start teaching ourselves that, teaching our children that. And at some point, we will be in a position that we need to be in. Right? We got to understand that. The first will be the last. But things are changing. The tide is changing. Their ancestors are probably rolling over in their graves because they see that we cannot be destroyed. Hundreds of years, and we're still here. And we cannot be destroyed. But, man, I appreciate all of y'all for listening, all of y'all for watching. About to start working on the next video. Make sure y'all subscribe to the backup channel too, the Forecast Radio 24, because that's where the videos are going to be that you're used to. I can only really use this channel to do the live, so the videos that you're used to will be on that channel, the Forecast Radio 24. But I appreciate all of y'all support for real, man. Y'all hold it down. It's no telling how many people are really watching and listening to us, right? That's why we always gotta do what we have to do. Never give up. Enemy will do anything to try to make you give up, but never give up, man. But I appreciate y'all. And as always, man, we have got to start standing for something, or we can keep falling for anything.